Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee to order. And we need approval for minutes for our September 8th meeting.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Any corrections or additions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries. I will ask our county trustee, Mr. Beatty, to come and give his report.
Thank you, ma'am. We did have one bid this month, which turned out maybe a little better than I was afraid it might at .55. But you can still see that we just had 3 institutions bidding, so our interest is still down a little, but not a bad rate. But the LGIP dropped 2 basis points on us last month to .12. Yeah. Can I give a little update on where we are with LGIP?
Surely.
Had the opportunity, the Trustees Association has formed a committee. There's 6 of us on that committee, and we met with Treasurer Lillard a couple of weeks ago, and Tim McClure, who is who's in charge of the LGIP, and we just began some meetings to talk about maybe some things we can do with the state to improve in terms of their concern, because they're investing for retirements and for lottery funds, and just, you know, also they're under the same pressures we are. But it was a very open meeting. I appreciate the opportunity. They were very agreeable for us talking about some things, and just, you know, it looks like we're kind of in a low interest rate environment. So with all the safety issues that we have and liquidity, we're just looking if we can pool together to maybe extend some maturities out a little bit with our pooled money and get a little better rate. So we're trying to work within our requirements to do that. So hopefully it will approve. At least we had some good discussion starting off anyway.
What you're looking at is what, putting part of what you have available out with by grouping with.
We're trying to look kind of what the state has as a minimum balance, and to be honest with you, these are just, the discussion was very frank that these are different times than we've seen. And counties across 95, as we pool with the LGIP, that state money and other counties, a lot of counties are not in nearly as good a financial shape as Rutherford County. So the concern is what has been historical floors, counties may not keep as much money. They may need that money. So there is that concern, because at this point, the local government really almost allows us to have all our money overnight. So we're looking at ways that maybe counties that know we're going to have money for a certain period of time could commit maybe to a little longer window. We could look at what that floor is to say, what are some things we can do? Because I think the average now is like 120 days, or as far out as LGI goes, 120 days. So we're looking at, there's some things we can do that are safe, where we know we're going to have that money a little longer, that we can extend that. But our bid was, just to give you something, was .55, and the Treasury's 2-year today closed at .17. So we did substantially better than that. But as we look at liquidity and safety, I mean, there's just not a lot out there that we can do. But we are not just throwing our hands up. We've tried to meet in a group and say, what are we going to do? I wish I had better. But maybe in the days ahead we'll have, we've got several heads together trying to look to do better. We're not just accepting this is where we are. We're trying to say, what can we do to improve our return?
Any questions or comments for Mr. Beatty?
Motion to approve his report.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Beatty. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beatty.
Thank you.
I just need to pass out. Oh, she read it?
No, you need to read the report.
No.
Okay, you read. Okay, gentlemen, locate your fund condition report, and our finance director, Mrs. Nolan, will start with the development tax report.
In September, we received $60,750 in development tax fund. That brings us up to $255,000. While that may be less than we had in the other years. It is a quarter of what our estimate is. Our estimate was $1 million for this year, so.
That's the lowest for the first 3 months
It's
we've
the
ever
lowest
had.
estimate. It is.
Okay, gentlemen, let's go to cash balances, please.
At the end of September, our cash balance was $114,460,000, with $96,574,000 being operating funds and $17,887,000 being borrowed funds. $15 million of that is a loan from the debt service fund.
Questions or comments about cash balances? I was going to call attention to 171, the 2001 Agriculture Extension Center line item. My question was, at this point, could we just get that off the books? And I mentioned that to the finance director.
And what I recommended is that we move it out of the General Capital Projects Fund and add that to the balance that is assigned for the agricultural purposes.
Well, we put the money from the Guy James property and things like that.
That's what this money is.
Oh, that's some of
It's
that's
the rent
left.
money.
Yeah.
That's
The rent
over in
money
the.
that comes over.
Mhm. So
Well, it ought to
this-
go back to that facility for maintenance and upkeep.
This is what it's
I mean, they
used.
did purchase order this month out of this.
Oh, they did? Okay, so whatever balance is left,
I mean,
then
they're
we
still
can
kind of
move
They're
it.
spending a
doing
little bit.
a sign, I believe, of some
It was
sort.
$1,000, I think.
But we could close this out and just let them take it out of that.
Their fund balance.
As long as, they have some plans, as long as they can take this thing, the money out for the signs, et cetera, that they're working on, then that would be fine. As long as it stays available to
As
them.
long as this doesn't leave that project and go to general fund or
And
something
maybe
like that.
maybe what we can do is come back and bring an amendment in, and if there is something that they, because the problem that it could occur is if they're spending it now, this money isn't budgeted into the general fund, so we would have to budget, we'd have to get with Anthony and find out how much of this would need to be budgeted in the current year.
And
They
he
have
knows
plans.
they didn't have enough money to do 2 signs, so they're gonna do 1 now, which would take, I don't know whether it's 10,000 or some number, but.
Okay, well, maybe we'll just.
Well,
vote on
if
this.
that's, I just was looking at it in terms of the date and wanting to clean up some of those old
Okay.
things. But yes, if that's not,
So we might just hold on that.
if we
for
might
a
ought to
while.
wait and just take a look and see, give them some more time if they have some purchase orders out.
I have
Anything
one-
else on cash balances?
I have one other thing, in speaking with Jeff Sandvig, the 189-2010 energy project. There were some purchases that were coded to the Oakland and Buchanan Middle School project. So instead of this energy project should have 0. And this balance should be reflected in Buchanan and Oakland. So we can fix it on our side with a journal entry. I just want to bring this to your attention because later on we're going to talk about potentially transferring these monies, the Buchanan, Oakland, and then that energy project into the Stewart's Creek, not Stewart's Creek, Eagleville project.
What about
Commissioner Schaefer?
the line item right above that one with Central Magnet?
That'll go away.
44%.
Yeah, that's going to go.
And what about, keep going on up to 189 too?
Rockville Middle.
Yeah.
I didn't bring the school board project, but if that can go, we.
I have an amendment on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you.
So that 47,000 is already in those two 189 line items?
It's all in
Buchanan and
that
Oakland?
fund. It should be reflected as more money in Buchanan and Oakland than,
So the same bottom line, it just needs to be moved to the other lines.
right.
Okay.
I'm telling you now that, because later on in the documents that I'll show you, I'm only using those 2 top numbers, but know that that's available too. Okay?
Okay, and if you'll take a look at the belong sheet, and we can do some comparing.
Comparison where we are with 3 months of our year, but really, it's 3 months operating base. probably really about 2 months of revenue. So I've highlighted something in the general fund, the difference between those 2 years in 10, 11, 11, 12 on that first total local taxes, that is lower than all the other years. It has to do with the Nissan pilot payment that we've got in October, and all those other years we got it in September, the very last day, so it got receipted into the September month. So when we get and look at these sheets next year, it'll smooth out.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bond. Any further discussion or questions from Mrs. Howard? All in favor, please say aye. Thank you.
I just failed to mention that sales tax for the first 2 months, for July and August, this is overall, this is all the county and the cities. We're 5% higher for the first 2 months than we were last year at this time.
I'm sorry, did you mention that refund debt right there?
That's just why that is so high,
Oh,
is that
okay.
we refunded money, and that's what makes it
All right, all right.
so out of line.
Okay, our insurance director, Mrs. Stinson, will give the insurance financial report.
We got a couple of things to cover tonight. We'll start with Fund 264, just the insurance performance report. We'll go to the second page. For the month of September, our per employee per month was at $817.46. That brings our year-to-date average to $892.74. The on-site medical, we transitioned to Take Care as the management company on September the 1st. For the month of September, our per employee per month is at $17.75, bringing our total per employee per month to $835.21. I know that as we go through the clinic review, there's always a question of, is it the right financial investment? So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight as well about the one column that we don't often visit, which is the cost per visit. Our cost per visit year-to-date average is $87.15. If you look at prior year, we closed out with an average of $88.57. I had requested information from Cigna to tell me what is a private care physician appointment cost in Rutherford County in our population. And currently we're at $110. It's a close delta between those two numbers of what we're seeing in cost passed through Cigna versus what we're seeing inside of our clinics. And I want to remind you all that on the $110, that's not indicative of the copays that we collect on private care physician appointments, and it's also not inclusive of the copays we collect on the medications, because we do prescription distribution out of the clinics as well, which is in the $87.15. So as we continue to move through the year, I'll continue to monitor these numbers, and it's certainly over the next 3 years of the clinics, and make sure that it's the right financial investment for us. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we're seeing in the clinics later on at the request of Commissioner Sandlin.
There's some reason why there's so much volatility in the cost per visit. I mean,
They're jumping all over, aren't they?
July is $45, August is $93, September's $122. And look at last year. I guess this was last year. It's the same. It's $50 one month, $89, $53, then $128. I mean,
Sometimes it has to do when you get your supply bill and your medicine bills. If you don't get it that month, you
looks
get
like there's
two.
almost like a quarterly jump, which could be a billing cycle or something
Right.
like
The
that.
other thing too is if you look at the office visits, of course, September is a misnomer because we're having longer appointment times as we're reacclimating people to the new management
The
company.
number went from 1650 to 732, so
Right.
fixed costs would have to go up. We're
Right.
doing half the volume.
But our cost on the invoices we received also went down considerably as well. But if you look at the prior year as well, you'll see that there's volatility in those numbers. Part of the contribution to those numbers is canceled appointments, no-show appointments, and appointment times that aren't otherwise filled. And so that's where you see the volatility there. But year-to-date average, we are at $914.97 as compared to $745.57. I expect that we'll continue to see the shift in trend go down. This was the first month that we've collected premium on the Board of Education side, which is why you see such a a difference in the numbers as they move around. As we get more steady premium collections, then you'll see the trend adjust to reflect that. That's why we had such a jump last time. Any questions? So now we'll go to Fund 266, which is our on-the-job injury and remaining 20 workers' comp claims that we have. For the month of September, we're at $155,428.25. We're running almost at 100% the same time last year. Last year we were at $157,074.49. Any questions there?
Motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Salmon. Seconded by Commissioner Richards.
The next report in your pile is
Wait a minute, let me get a vote.
I'm so sorry.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now, sorry. The next report is the implementation budget. I was requested to provide this at last meeting. When the contract was awarded to Take Care, the projected budget was for implementation was $201,714. We've come in at $178,986, and that number may actually go down. And the reason I say that is if you look at the information above, we've booked 100% on the information system support expense because we are still evaluating to see if we can return some of the equipment, such as backup power supplies, which are costly. They purchase those routinely. As we've identified what resources are available, their IT people are going back through and doing an inventory control asset review to see if there are any products that can be returned, and we'll see an offset to that number. But nonetheless, we still came in 11% below what they have projected.
That's got all the drug inventories and everything that we were.
Everything, all the training, hiring, any supplies that we needed to purchase on the front end. We're still finding an occasional supply. As an example, Stewart's Creek Clinic did not have a lab chair, and we're going to have to purchase one of those. That's about $300, but that will come through their regular monthly budget and not as part of the implementation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
All right, and last but not least, two of the commissioners at the table have talked during the last week about the availability of appointments in the clinic, so I thought it may be appropriate to discuss this tonight as well. When we went through the evaluation process of the clinics and we did the interviews, I made the comment to the insurance committee that availability of appointments remains our #1 complaint. It was with Care Here, it is today. And it really is not always a provider problem, it's a Rutherford County problem. And the reason I say that is we average 138 hours one week and 143 hours the next because we increase hours every other week over at the health department. We have 12,724 people, ages 3 and up, who are eligible to use our clinics. Of that 12,000 people, over 8,000 of them, using the same demographics for our employees as the dependents, 67% of that 12,000, or 8,300, live in a Murfreesboro zip code. In Murfreesboro, we have the Blackman Clinic, and we have limited hours over at the health department. Other reasons why we can't get appointments other than the supply and demand problem is the fact that we have a lot of people that repeatedly visit the clinics. During the first 8 months of the year, 71% of all of the people that came to the clinic came more than once. In the month of September alone, 24% of all appointments were repeat visitors. So that only leaves 75% of appointments available for sinus infections and those other type of conditions where you may want an appointment. I have learned a lot.
Whoa. Repeat visitors for the same thing, or just repeat for something else?
It could be for a follow-up, it could be for something else, but it's that same individual acquiring more than one appointment during the month.
Well, throughout a year, it should go up as the year went on, because just if you go in January, it means you don't go again for 11 months. Or if you go another time, you're starting to get repeat people.
Right. So we had, last year we had about 4,800 unique visitors to the clinics. About 100 of them went 8 times. We had people that went as many as 20 times during the course of the year. So the number of hours of operation don't change week over week. When you're trying to service over 12,000 people in these clinics, and 67% of them live in the location of one clinic, I think logically we can say the 57 hours of operation at Blackman, which is what, 1 1/4 private practice, logically we know they can't treat 12,000 people in a year. But what we find is that there's higher expectations from the people who are on the insurance plan when it comes to the clinics. As an example, when someone calls and wants to use it in a clinic, the way the process works is they'll call, they'll try to schedule an appointment at a certain clinic. We will defer them to another clinic that may have an availability that day. Time and time again, it's repeated, that's too far to drive. I can assure you that from Blackman, even all the way out to Walter Hill, it's less than a copay. But the motivation of our employees to take advantage of that isn't there. So I'm a little bit disadvantaged in trying to address the problem because of the number of hours that we have assigned to the clinic, and secondarily the behavior of our employees, and they are choosing the convenience of a walk-in clinic versus using the clinic. And there's not a lot of deviation in the evaluation that they make on, is it really a problem with the clinics, or is it a choice that I'm making to not go? The other thing that we found through this transition is the level of care that's offered at the clinics. When the clinics were originally implemented, they were implemented for cost avoidance, so that we could keep people out of the emergency rooms because they lacked primary care providers, and so that people would not let the conditions exacerbate that ultimately cost the plan a lot of money. What we're finding is that the conditions that are being treated are treated well beyond the initial intent into mental health, as an example. What we've had to do over the last 5 weeks that clinics have been in operation is to start to par back those expectations. We, you know, as part of the service offering, we also have to protect the liability we expose the county to. And when it's an inappropriate level of treatment for our clinics, we're doing referrals out into the community. And then in some instances, those weren't done before. So there's a variety of reasons why people can't get the appointments. But as I said, since two had already heard in the last week and had brought this word to me, I felt like you all may hear it as well. So I wanted to give you a little bit of information tonight that hopefully you can address questions that are brought your way.
The clinic at Walter Hill isn't over 3-4 miles outside the city limits. I mean, it's not that far by any means. You know, I mean, it's fairly convenient. If there's an opening at Walter Hill, and for the majority of those people are
That
within
side of town, it's closer than Blackman then.
Yeah, if you're anywhere out in the Oakland area or something like that, then they can get to Walter Hill a lot quicker than they can get to Blackman.
Somehow, though, we've created an environment where low cost, no cost equals my personal convenience. And, you know, there's only so much that I can do in my role to address that.
Don't hold back.
But
Tell
I
us
can
what-
do
tell us what you
it. So I just, you know, I think that sometimes we lack that review. You know, people think that there is an issue here, and statistically, I just wanted to show you that, you know, I'm a little bit limited on what I can do in terms of addressing some of the problems that you are having to deal with, so.
Question.
Mhm.
On your HRAs, the
Yes.
county encourages those,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
So that means if somebody gets an HRA, they can be feeling great, nothing wrong with, but this is a preventative thing.
Right.
Okay, but that's one time for them, so then if they get the cold later on or an ear infection later in the year, then they're a repeat offender, is what.
Then they would
can't-
have 2 appointments,
Yeah,
correct,
okay.
during the year. Right.
I was just wanting to point that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
20 times.
Gentlemen, let's begin with our budget amendments, and if you will turn to section 3 in your notebooks, we have an ambulance service fund budget amendment. Mayor Burgess,
Okay.
section 3.
This budget amendment, for those of you that haven't been on public safety, we had budgeted this year $197,000 to buy 2 ambulances, and we've taken bids, and again, we have the same opportunity we had even last year. For another $28,000, we can buy a 3rd ambulance. So Mike has found a way to move enough money to accumulate $28,000 more, $10,000 out of contracts, $3,600 out of office supplies, $3,600 out of uniforms, and $10,800 out of health equipment, and that will put us in a position to go ahead and purchase 3 new ambulances at $75,000 each.
So you get a better deal on the third one if you buy them all 3 at once.
Well, this will be the last opportunity to get these ambulances at this price.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner P, thank you, and seconded by Commissioner Sand.
It seemed like last year they were holdovers from a previous model year. That's still the same.
This is the same set of ambulances, yes. But they have full warranty and they are new.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer? Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, staying in section 3, Mrs. Nolan will present a budget amendment from the property assessor's office.
This is to request funding for panel and countertop for the office workspace in the assessor's office, $700 out of consultants to furniture and fixtures.
So moved.
Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I'll pass.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. From juvenile court, Judge Davenport is here. Good evening.
We are finding ourselves with doing more courts, build it and they will come, and they keep coming. And we are having 2 courts customarily every day. For the past almost year, we've been having 3 courts on Tuesday. And now Magistrate Dodd is going to start working on Thursdays, some Wednesdays, and still on Tuesdays. And we only have Mondays where we have 2 court officers. So what we're asking is for some more part-time officers to help us at least have the courtrooms and/or one of the hearing rooms covered, or 2 could rotate when we have those 3 courts.
And that money's coming from
This is coming
Court
from the
security.
litigation tax for court security.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner P. Discussion or questions for Judge Davenport?
That's what it's for.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
And I'd like to remind everybody, our annual open house is Thursday, October the 20th. And you all should have gotten your invitation, and we'll send you out another one. And also reminding the public that it's open. It's the only time during the year you can bring your children. They can tour the detention facility. So we're hoping for another big turnout, and hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much.
Gentlemen, section 3 of your notebook, a budget amendment for fire and rescue. I gave Mr. Farley a pass tonight because he is hosting the fire chiefs from the Middle Tennessee region and needed to be there. So if you will look, and I understand we have 2 members who have seen this in committee, so, and he said they could explain it, and also Mayor Burgess could help with this.
Well, he's moving $20,330 over into maintenance and repair of equipment and maintenance and repair of vehicles, $6,000 and $14,330. It's turned out that he's not going to have to use that $20,000 that was in the budget, but we do need to make these 2 repairs that he has outlined here, so that's the request.
The money for the scuba bottles that he mentioned there, they are needed, but I think he got those through a grant, so that's why he's got that extra money there. But I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner P., and seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Discussion?
One other thing, just since he's not here, is I think he had a large expense on a transmission on one of the trucks, and he's got 20 vehicles he's having to maintain now. That's part of why he's transferring this amount over.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. And from the Correctional Work Center, Mrs. Nolan?
This is a request to move $213 from the lieutenant to the secretary line item. One of the employees is retiring, and so this helps fund her payout and then provide funds for the next person coming in.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. From the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Arnold and Ms. Jacobs.
Good evening.
Good evening. Gentlemen, if you will locate your budget amendments, and I just have had a minute to speak with Sheriff Arnold and Ms. Jacobs. Before I ask him to present his budget amendment, you will notice when you look at this, this is the same pattern that we had last month, where we have numerous small amounts of either a donation or contributions or unexpected revenue. I'm going to ask if the committee would consider dealing with this either on a quarterly basis, or if it is your decision, perhaps even twice a year, where we do not have to bring this up at each of our meetings. First of all, it will streamline our work and our meeting here, and then it will certainly simplify things and streamline my report to the full commission. Let me give you just a quick an example of what we're talking about. Look at his budget amendments for tonight. If you will notice, items 1, 2, 3, and on the next page, 6 and 8 are contributions for specific purposes. This could be dealt with on a quarterly basis or twice a year. Notice items 4, 5, and on the next page, item 7. Those are examples of unexpected revenue, and what we could consider there is that just goes in increased revenue. And then you remember at the end of the year when we do our revenue adjustments, that could be taken care of. And as we talked about this before the meeting, you notice these are rather small amounts, and if you will also notice, he has sufficient funding for each of the line items. So it's not like he's going to be short on money, and if at some point in time there was not enough money, he would just have to come back to this committee. And Sheriff Arnold is okay with this, and do you need to add anything else from the finance office and the county
No,
point of view?
I think it will help us, and they do have good staff there that can keep up with things.
Could we
We
not
have lots
allow
of kudos.
the mayor or the finance director to, I mean, a $400 donation and a $193, and these small amounts, I mean, I know, is there any way to let that be handled without having to come through the committee process?
Here's the problem, is that when you adopt your appropriation resolution, you adopt it for that bottom line. So we really can't deviate that
This
line.
adjusts that, even if it's
Right.
$193.
Even if it's whatever.
If the
we
mayor
can't
could
deviate
just
it.
approve the contribution coming in, and that would be done with it.
So you want to
That'd
do
be
it
too simple.
quarterly then?
So what I'm asking you, quarterly or twice a year, I wanted to just throw that out to the committee, and I would need some kind of a motion from you, yes.
I'll make a motion.
You want to do it?
I'm gonna go twice a year.
I'll second it. On
Okay.
contributions and other items that are
The
small.
contributions and then the
sale
unexpected
of
revenue,
material,
like the sale of
unexpected,
recycled
yes.
materials, for instance.
Yes.
And I guess
Okay, what are we doing contributions twice a year, is that what you're saying?
And the unexpected revenues.
Twice
the
a year
end,
on
twice
that
a year.
too? I thought
But
we,
we still
twice-
could
twice.
I thought we were gonna do
bring
it
it
at
up
the year.
if we
end.
needed to.
Right,
Yeah.
revenue
Right.
at the, unexpected revenue at the end.
That's right.
Okay.
However, the door's open that if he runs short, he could come
Sure.
back.
Well, in the meanwhile, say he gets a donation 6 months from now, I mean, what is he gonna do with that donation in the meanwhile?
When
Where
you
is he gonna
receive-
put that?
It all goes in.
Receipts?
It goes
It's
in the general
reported to us.
fund, I mean.
It'll go
it's
into the
gonna come
general
through, it's
fund,
gonna
not
count
into
for
a
it.
specific line item, that's what I'm asking.
Right. And then when,
Okay.
instead of coming every month and doing this, they'll just,
As long as it's
They'll
going in the
lump it
general
all
fund, I'm
and
fine
bring
with
it
it.
down.
I just, if it's going to specific line items, I'd like to know where
Good to keep
where
it
they're
in his
going.
pocket.
So.
no, I mean,
Well,
they,
I know that.
If somebody were to donate a large amount
And
of
that
money
needs to
for a
come
specific,
now.
they could come immediately
Yeah,
if
like
I
we
needed
had
it.
a guy that, well, he didn't want it to come through here, so he just paid for it and bought a dog and donated the dog to the department. And so we got a dog.
I have to
instead of-
approve the dog?
Instead of, yeah.
but I would say if there was a large contribution for a specific thing, it would be
We gotta
probably
approve a dog, but-
something really big that
Well,
he wouldn't have the money in that line to cover. I mean, you would probably bring that on.
Since these represent unexpected real increases in revenue for these line items, what would be wrong with leaving the money in the unassigned fund balance unless the donations were specifically earmarked for specific accounts?
I mean, I think that.
Usually all.
Yeah, all of our donations are earmarked for a specific purpose. You got some people that want to donate to the canine fund, that they just like canines, they like dogs, so they're helping out buy dog food for the dogs, or people are buying bricks for the 9/11 memorial, or people are donating to the garden. So, I mean, they most of the time, we'll make them either write on there in the memo part what exactly they're donating it for, so it can go directly to that.
And they do look for that.
Yeah. Yeah, we always make sure that they put where they want this money to go. It doesn't go just, hey, we're giving the county some extra money. We want it to go to help this project.
So I think that's what, we'll accomplish what you're asking, is that those contributions that are for specific, they will be coming through, but unexpected revenue unexpected meaning, still something,
It's not budgeted.
it's not budgeted. It'll just come through, and we'll adjust the revenues at the end.
And this should simplify and streamline our process just a little bit. Is everybody clear on the motion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you, Sheriff Arnold, and Ms. Jacobs, thank you, because I know this is what you actually deal with anyway, so thank you
Okay.
very much. Now, gentlemen, we do need to deal with 9 and 10.
So we wouldn't shelf the ones we had on the list for even tonight, okay?
So the others, didn't take care, but we do need to deal with 9 and 10. Sheriff Arnold or Ms. Jacobs?
Okay. The number 9 is the transfer within our budget from the sheriff's data processing equipment into the repair and maintenance of the equipment for $5,000. Number 10 is transfer within our budget from detention data process equipment into the repair and maintenance of equipment.
Maintenance of repair of what equipment?
Computer equipment.
Oh, okay.
And we do have a motion from Commissioner P, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yeah.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Staying in section 3, DEA Special Purpose Fund Budget Amendments.
Okay, the first one is from August 2011 for $11,884, moving it into the special purpose uniform account. And the second one is for September 2011 for $13,063, going into the special purpose uniform account.
Move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, second by Commissioner Sims. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Next item, recommendations from Property Management Committee and Public Safety Committee regarding the jail kitchen renovation and extension.
I'm gonna let her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
That way it doesn't hit us on overtime.
She's already clocked in.
Sheriff Arnold, Mayor,
Okay,
and
we've,
Ms. Nolan.
we've had this discussion with the Property Management and the Public Safety Committee, starting with the survey, you might say, from the TCI. They identified some things that needed some remediation and some improvements, and even following up with that, we have done some more exploration on our own initiative, which has reinforced the need for us to make some substantial improvements in this kitchen at the jail. Now, what we had proposed earlier is to allow us to go ahead and engage an architect, which is going to cost us $78,000, assuming that the $1.2 million that they had estimated that it would take to actually renovate and expand the kitchen, that's how much it would take for the design fees, et cetera. So we've are still undergoing some serious review of what we're going to do, the scope of it. The most the scope would be this 1.2 million. We're sort of regrouping and revisiting and seeing if some possibility might even exist, and we're having the architect even work on that now to do this remediation and this improvement and redesign of the whole process within the current structure, wall structure we have there, without adding the expansion, with the exception of moving to an outside location the cooler and the freezer, which would be sitting outside in its own little area, but we wouldn't be doing the 2,500 square feet addition that we may be proposed here initially. We won't know if that's practical or workable or what the cost of that will be until hopefully next Friday. We've set a date for them to get this information to us. But what we really need is some sort of authorization to engage in this agreement with the architect so that we can actually move forward with the design of this, and we'll have to make a final decision with you at some point in the future, maybe next month, hopefully, as to whether we're going to do it just within the current square footage we have, or whether we're going to do an addition that we initially proposed. And we're having to involve, again, a kitchen design person to help us determine if the space we currently have would be enough to do what we really need to do to serve 800 to 900 inmates.
958.
Okay, that's
That's our
capacity.
And we're currently using the same supplier or vendor that's doing the correctional workout center. Is that how you're feeding the people now?
ABL is, the workhouse has a contract. They don't have, the county doesn't have employees out there.
Yeah, I know.
We just.
And so you're utilizing their same vendor right now?
It's costing us 10 cents more than what we're used to paying, but yes, we're using their vendors. They're cooking it,
Costing you, that's what I'm wondering, is that a possible long-term fix? With that number of people, you would think not, you know, but because the numbers at the workhouse are what?
Well, we
about
have
200.
200, you know.
Well, we have a workhouse that's designed for a capacity of 200.
Yeah, this is
56.
4
inmates.
times that over
So,
there. Yeah.
Right now, we're serving,
Yeah.
it's taking us 22 hours a day to serve these 1,000 meals
Yeah.
or thereabouts that we're currently preparing. It's way more, I guess you could say, volume and time being required, and our kitchen out there is, I mean, it's much overutilized, and
It's designed for 256.
or yeah, or thereabouts.
Now, you
Are
told
they?
us,
Go ahead.
you told us in public safety the other night that this was working extremely well, what you're doing right now. You said that the food's getting to the prisoners and it's still hot. It's easier to deliver it to them by using this outside vendor, and actually it's working better than what it was working in the kitchen itself, is what we were told at public safety by the sheriff. Am I
I
correct
never
on
said
that?
that it was working better than what it was working in the kitchen.
Well, you're getting your meals to them faster, you're getting them to them, and they're still warm, so to me, that's better. So maybe those are my words.
What is the downside from continuing to outsource like we are now?
You'll have all the kitchen staff will quit. It's extremely stressful on the staff and/or just everybody involved. The security of it, right now, we're just coming in the back door, or actually the side door, because we can't even come in through the kitchen. Coming in the side door, we're using the indoor rec area and just using a table like this and setting up a feeding line and then sending it up. So you don't have the indoor rec space anymore. You don't have, it's just extremely stressful upon everybody.
I believe you. It just seems like it'd be less stressful because you don't have to cook the food. You just
No.
have to let the folks.
It's
in
less, it's
serve
less
it.
stressful on him, it's gonna be a lot more stressful on the work center over there. The work center doesn't really have any employees that we have assigned to the kitchen. This is all done by the contract service. But as much movement as we're having to use now on inmates, et cetera, for the staff, we're gonna have to put somebody in there to provide the proper handling of these inmates that are coming and going 22 out of 24 hours a day right now. So we probably have to add a staff member at some point if we're going to do this on a long-term basis.
Well,
The kitchen doesn't have enough equipment to do this long-term either. It's gonna require additional equipment likely if we were to do this on a long-term basis. It's gonna put stress on that small kitchen that's supposed to accommodate 250 plus people over a long period of time. We're gonna have this similar problem over there that we currently have at the sheriff's jail detention area now.
well,
I believe you. It just seems like you'd need less equipment if you weren't cooking the food on site. It seems like you'd need less space if you weren't cooking it on site. You're suggesting we're outsourcing, we're bringing the food in, but we need more equipment,
But
more
we're-
staff.
We're doing this within the confines of our kitchen that's at the work center. That's where this is being done, to provide the food in bulk to bring over to the,
Oh, I thought they cooked it at a private enterprise and brought it over, so it's being cooked.
it's
It's
being done right out there right
in our
now.
own facility.
And we can handle this for a few
Yeah.
months, several months, but it's going to be a point of no return.
well, I mean, I'm kind of like the other commissioner here. Seems like it is working now. I don't know what would need to make this work, but one thing that I see is consolidating services, just like we've talked about consolidating communication. Consolidating these food services seems like a smart thing to do. If we can have one kitchen, one set of staff to do that, you need more office space over at the current jail. Let's gut that kitchen out. We've already said we could renovate it for $50,000, use that for office space that I keep hearing that we're needing. Use those people that want to man these towers that I keep hearing are not manned around the clock. So that looks like it would actually fix a couple of problems you got. It'd give you more space for office space, consolidate your food services, and also give you more employees to man these towers that he's wanting to man around the clock. So
I'm not wanting the state saying we have to.
Well, we can talk about those tower independent. I mean, there's a whole different discussion there that
well, this is something that's been brought up.
I understand.
So, I mean, this is all
but
part
I think
of the
we'll have
mix.
to go back
So.
and revisit the history of it. There's enough staff that's been appropriated to provide that service.
I agree with that. I've got a listing of them right here. I was gonna get into it, but we'll save that for another day.
Commissioner
But
Stanton?
I think the long-term real problem with this approach would be that kitchen at the work center is just not designed to handle this kind of stress and volume. It
Well,
just-
what about making a joint food service? If we're gonna expand one or the other, do away with the food service in one, because from what I'm hearing is it's working well as far as getting the meals to them now, as far as what's happening inside the jail itself, how they're getting it in and up on the floors. You know, I don't know what's going on with that. But I mean, consolidating that with having one unit,
These are
seems
the
to me
two that
that
have
would
been
be
dealing with it.
more cost savings.
Here are the two that have been dealing with it. You can talk to them directly and ask them how they've been dealing with it.
What was said in the last meeting was that what we're doing by the way we're feeding is better than it has been, but by the way we're doing it with the tools we have that we purchased. We're delivering them hotter by the way we're processing the food. It's not that it's being done necessarily at the workhouse. That's a daily routine of trying to be sure you have enough sandwiches, bread, diets put together, eggs, diabetic meals. I mean, it's an unbelievable work in progress that we're having to do. And up on top of that, the workhouse is not responsible for feeding the sheriff's office. That's an agreement we made with them. The sheriff by law is responsible for the prisoners in that jail.
Well, I mean, this is a subcontractor that's basically doing that for both of you, if I'm not mistaken. What was the company?
ABL. But that's a contract that the mayor has done for the workhouse. Now, if you want to talk about consolidation of the workhouse and the sheriff's office again, we can talk about that.
I'm
But,
talking
yeah.
about the kitchen services, just like we talked about communications with you and the ambulance service and the other people that have to communicate here in the county.
Well, what I was trying to explain is the sheriff's responsible for the prisoners in that jail, not the workhouse.
I understand that, and we're responsible for paying for it. I'm trying to find the most cost-effective way to do that.
Well, it's costing us more to feed them now than it is at the jail. the way
Well, it's
we're doing
costing
it.
us 10 cents more per meal. If we didn't have double staff providing that, then perhaps it'd be.
Somebody at the jail's gonna have to feed the prisoners,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
I understand that, but I'm
They're
saying
having to
somebody's
still feed
having to
prisoners.
prepare it, and there's a cost associated with that.
Well,
I
if
want
they're
to
preparing
echo
it,
what
but
the
they're still
mayor
having to
said
feed them at
about
the
the
jail.
wear and tear on the kitchen. The kitchen at the work center is not big enough to maintain 1,000 meals a day, or 1,000 meals of feeding, like they're doing right now. 800 for us and 200 for them. Sooner or later, they're gonna break down too, just like we have.
Plus, they're doing juvenile detention.
And juvenile detention, yeah. I don't know what their population there is.
Probably about 30.
Commissioner Stanley?
What's the difference in the square footage, the size, and all that compared to our school systems and what we're doing in feeding 1,100 students a day, twice a day, feeding them breakfast and lunch, where here I know you're feeding them 3 times a day, or 3 hot meals or whatever. 2 hot meals and
2 hot meals and a
sack lunch or something like that.
I can
yeah.
tell you over at Oakland, being the SRO out at Daniel McKee and going over to Oakland quite a bit and helping them out, what we're wanting to do is kind of along the lines of what they did when they had to renovate. We're having the exact same problems that they had when they had to renovate. Their kitchen facilities is almost 3 times the size of ours that they use to feed the kids basically lunch. So, you know, but we're having to do the exact same thing as what Oakland had to do and Riverdale had to do.
Are these folks affiliated with the school systems at all on how they do it?
I don't know.
They
whether
just
they are
do
not.
mainly jails and prisons throughout the southeast, is it?
I think they may be.
Well, they're around.
Are they around?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at our resources here in building these schools and what we've done in the past, and we're basically, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, we're still,
Well, you're just using them to provide the services of staff, and in your own kitchen. They don't provide the kitchen services, I mean, the actual equipment and space.
no, I'm talking about in redoing our kitchen out there, expanding it or preparing it to what all the things that we need as far as equipment and everything. To me, it would be just as big as like a commercial kitchen. You know, I mean, it is a commercial kitchen.
Commercial
You know,
kitchens, they certainly are.
I mean, it has to be to serve that many meals and, you know, per day, per year, so. But in this right here, and spending 78, what is it, 78,000?
Yes.
This is just for design? And we don't even know, it may be $2 million, but then again, that's not the expansion of the.
It could be up to $1.2 million if we do the expansion plus the renovation.
Would
And
you
the
need,
complete-
go ahead, would you need the full 78,000 in architect fees if you weren't gonna expand, if you're just gonna get in there and clean up and get rid of the rust and buy some
It's
new
gonna-
kitchen equipment?
We
would it be
wouldn't need the full
78,000?
78, it would be something less. That's what we're
It's
finding
a
out.
percentage of what you spend.
It'll be a percentage of what we spend, yes.
Well, we were told we could, at public safety, around $50,000 would clean up the current jail, fix the tile, the walls there.
It won't now.
It's not even close, I mean, it's,
So it's changed since last week, or
well,
the week before
here,
when we had our
let me say
meeting.
this, the first initial approach was just to clean it up cosmetically, you might say, regrout, retile, and fix the base, et cetera. But to increase the capacity and allow this to really happen with either an expanded kitchen or just within the confines of the current space, it takes a redesign of the flow of all this stuff in here to make this thing more efficient and more effective and work to really where you can get the meals out a lot more timely than they have been able to
I
do that.
invited you out.
So,
That's what we're dealing with right now.
Now, they have, in this course of all this, we've discovered more difficulties than we thought that we had. They must be
Drain
addressed.
pipes that we had problems with, or they were saying. Yeah.
So we're going to have to address that completely and thoroughly at the jail kitchen area. So The 1.2 could come down if we don't actually do the expansion. It will come down. We don't know how much yet. We'll probably know hopefully by the end of next week.
In talking about the expansion, was the kitchen not built originally to service the jail?
Not to service, apparently. And again, we don't know. There's not any information that we have available that I'm aware of that will tell us how many inmates that kitchen was designed to serve. But we know they opened with 400 and something cells, and then immediately they went to twice that number. And we don't think the kitchen took that into consideration. We don't know. We just don't know.
It was designed for one man per cell, and there's two people
Yeah,
per cell.
Yes.
we think so, but we don't have any data to really support this accurately, all
It's
right?
also designed for 15 floors, and there's not that many floors out there either.
Commissioner, we had a kitchen expert come out today to ask him the very question, how many will this feed? He can calculate that. But if you'll take a trip over to the workhouse and look at that kitchen and come to ours, you'll see a huge difference in the size and the equipment. Enough said on that part, because whatever the kitchen thought it was built for back in '98, it's not working. It's not big enough. It's not functional enough, and it's falling apart.
The commission back when it was built kept cutting on the project, just like central control for that building. There's supposed to be 2 central controls within the jail, and they got down to the last minute and said, oh, by the way, where's central going? And then they took a bathroom and they turned it into central control because they had cut it out. There's numerous other spots within the facility that were cut out due to cost overruns and just shrinking the project.
Well, I think it's obvious we've got a temporary fix through the workhouse. Is there a vendor out there we could explore bringing our food to us that wouldn't have anything to do with the workhouse? And if so, how much would that cost? You know, I mean, just thinking, you know, if there a way around, you know, just get it delivered like it's been delivered but not destroying one of our other facilities. I would imagine that would get extremely expensive.
It would get extremely expensive, just like we're doing now. They're paying for gas, the truck to deliver it. They bring in extra personnel from Alabama and other places to produce this. But the biggest problem with that is you got special diets. We got over 100 prisoners with special diets, everything from diabetes, like I said, to certain foods, low salt, all this, that somebody has to really watch to prepare. And if you don't watch how this is prepared, and even with what we're working with ABL, we've had a few circumstances where we've had to really work hand in hand with them. And it's not that you can't do it, it's just stressful being in 2 different environments because you have 2 different ways of doing things at times, and we're responsible for how we feed these prisoners. If something happens to a prisoner and they're fed the wrong food,
It's a liability issue.
it's a liability.
If somebody's allergic to peanuts and you're giving them peanut butter and jelly, you've got problems.
Now, no matter what we do, if you contract it, we can't use one less employee to deliver the food as we're doing now.
They're sending their staff members from the jail over to the work center to coordinate these special diets. Our staff over there is not doing that. So we're preparing the food, but they're coordinating the delivery of that and being sure it matches up with the people's needs in specific. They'll still have to do that wherever. That would be a lot better done on their own site, but they are doing that.
So what are we asking for tonight?
$78,000
Up to a maximum of 78,000, because it could be substantial less. When are we gonna make the decision if we're doing the addition or just renovation? Because that's
We're
been
gonna have to come back
batted
to you and let you make that decision after we get some more information.
We'll go back to
next week.
property management,
Yeah.
public safety, and hit back here next month more than likely.
Right.
How accurate is the 1.2 million seem to be?
It's our best estimate. It's got a 25% contingency factor. I think it's more than it would actually cost. And about $300,000 of that money is equipment, for new equipment.
How are we going to decide whether to spend architectural fees on a design that's an expansion versus a design that's...
The architect is right now preliminarily making, see, he's already made this estimate on the 1.2 million. He's gonna, and you heard them say that the kitchen design person has been in there today to see what we could do within the current square footage that we have. They're gonna, once they get all this together, and they will make another projection on what they think it would take, if it will work within these current square footage, and then we'll have another number that we will apply a percentage on to get the actual architectural fee, which would go down.
I just asked the question because I'm wondering if we would spend $78,000 on an architectural fee to expand and then we decide
No.
we're not gonna move the walls.
We're not going to do that. We're not going to actually execute the contract until such time as we've made that final decision.
Where's the money gonna come from for either an expansion or the improvement?
Well, you can, I don't know when Lisa was going to get to this, but after we take these bids on the brick remediation, that is the next page she has here. Out of the current litigation tax fund that we have, and if the brick remediation costs $300, and if we spent the whole $78,000.
$300,000.
What did I say?
$300.
$300,000. If we spent that much and spent the whole $78,000, we would have $892,000 left in the litigation tax fund that would be available for whatever option we choose, you choose, as far as the kitchen renovation.
So the 78,000 is being proposed tonight, up to 78,000, is all coming from the litigation tax, just for people that are watching out there. This isn't from general fund. This is money that's earmarked for this type of work, something within the jail or something like that. So it's not pennies on the tax rate or something like that. This is earmarked money to start with.
What is, does the litigation tax generate each year, roughly?
Just to remind you, this is, the balance that's in here is from several years. Currently, the litigation tax is being used to service the debt on the workhouse.
So in other words, it's not gonna go up, it's money, and once it's
It's gonna
spent,
go
it's
down.
gone. That account doesn't get new
That's
money
right.
flowing in.
Right. As far as how much money it generates, last year, $815,000 came in.
What's the yearly debt?
It's more than this.
More than
It's
this.
more than
Okay.
this.
$20 million worth, $20+ million of debt on that building.
Okay.
So it's more than that. The principal interest would exceed that by a good bit.
How long would that 1.2 or that 800 and something thousand pay that debt so we wouldn't have to?
It- You'll have to help me remember, it was 20-year debt.
All right.
And when did we do, how long has that building been there?
It's been there, it's going on to about the 4th year.
Okay, so we got 16 more years.
So that 800,000 plus would pay it for what, a couple of years, a year?
No, I'm saying it's going, that is paying, currently paying the debt on that.
I mean, is it paying all of it? So
No,
the
it's not
payment
paying
for
all
this
of it.
year? Okay.
It's not paying all
It's
of it.
not enough to pay the whole interest and
And
principal on.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Right.
Sorry, I was. So we'd have to pick that up.
I think
All of
it'll
it,
take
so.
about $1.5 million per year to service $20 million of debt.
So basically, that money, if it's coming out of the litigation fund, we're still gonna have to replace it out of the taxpayers' dollars to pay this debt on the correctional work center.
We're not gonna use this 850. The money that's coming in every year, all of that is allocated for the sole purpose of paying that principal and interest.
But how much did you say that is? Ballpark? Does that generate?
I just remember that when I looked at it, it surpassed the amount of money that we were getting. from
So
the
we need
litigation.
approximately $1.5 million a year to mayor's.
On 20 million, I think it takes about
Yeah.
$1.5 million to
$1.5
service
million
principal and interest on
a
a
year
20-year
to make the
amortization.
payments. Now I was wondering what we brought in. Is it 2/3 of that, or
No,
is
we
it
brought in
They brought in
800.
$815.
815?
It's bringing in a little over.
A little over half.
Yeah,
Half, maybe.
815. Yeah.
But we're still obligated. What would happen, worst case scenario, if the state was to come in and pull our certification, whatever, on the jail? Say, you're not doing this.
We'd
The
lose a
state,
lot of
the
money
state
on
prisoners
board
would,
bills.
the boarded prisoners would all be gone.
No,
What
they
about
won't
a-
be gone. We'll just lose the money.
Yeah, the state, we still keep the prisoners.
They
We
wouldn't
don't-
just say shut it down and we'd have to pay some other county to keep them?
No.
We'd be stuck with them without the $35 or however much it is a day apiece.
And for every 77 inmates we house a year, the county gets about $1 million roughly.
Yeah.
And so if you figure out all the state inmates that we have, roughly is, I think the county makes about approximately $4 million a year on that.
That
Uh,
fluctuates.
And if you think about that on the tax rate, it's roughly a dime on the tax rate. Roughly.
That'd be a good deal for the state. They get to leave the prisoners here and not to pay us.
Yeah.
And
they could
they're
do that
also
anytime.
the ones who wouldn't have to pay us are the same ones that certify the jail.
Yeah. But they could do that at any time. They could, the state could
Yeah,
say,
that
we're
works.
broke, and
Yeah.
we don't want to pay the counties to house inmates anymore, so we're just not going to pay
With
them.
the economy getting tougher, are they getting more strict on jail certification?
Commissioner Stanley?
Madam Chairman, I think we've got to give the mayor the leadway here to get the ball rolling. And I'm going to make a motion that we approve up to $78,000 in design for the architect until we can get better numbers and a better plan and a better idea, and to get this ball rolling. We're not approving any money right now, from what I understand. This gets the architect moving. If it's $50,000, then it's $50,000. We hope it's less than that. But we can't sit here and let this go by and you know, we've got a jail. We've got to take care of the prisoners, and we are. And so we're not going to let that fall down and not take care of the duties that we have in hand. So I think this right here, get the ball rolling and let the mayor do what he needs to do to get start the bidding process.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Sandlin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Jernigan. Discussion? Commissioner Peake?
The certification, you know, the question came up in public safety. What specifically did the people that are certifying say that we needed to do? You know, my understanding was we had to fix the floors and the walls. Of course, we found some problems with the drain, whatever we had there. I don't recall from reading that report that they said that it was mandatory that we expand that. Now, what's your read on that, Mayor?
The only thing they talked about in that, they did talk about a shortage of dry goods storage space. I don't know what they said about storage space, but that's the only thing I remember, I believe,
They said there
is
was
the
not
dry
enough
goods.
dry goods space to store dry goods to feed up to 958 inmates.
So they
It's
didn't
not
say
big
that
enough.
we had to renovate
No.
and expand the services there to meet certification.
Commissioner P., I've got a copy of the report right here, and my impression is it's a fairly light report. She's written one or two sentences about these things, saying
Right.
things like we need to have a menu that indicates our portion size, we need to have a dietitian statement, we need to have lids on containers. She's been very brief. I'd almost be tempted to go back and ask her what exactly is required here for us to be in compliance, and the reason why I say that is her report is so brief that it's hard to interpret from this exactly what she's mandating versus what she's suggesting. There's 2 or 3 sentences here, and the reason why I bring that up, I almost hate to start down this path to spend $1.2 million over a 2 or 3 sentence review.
But let's say this, her review is very, very superficial. She doesn't understand the depth of what needs to be done, like the architect and like the sheriff's staff and et cetera know, and like we know. What we know needs to happen far exceeds what she has written down there. And
This is a new person that hasn't, I mean, new to us, and just, I think, been appointed this year by the governor, and from what I've heard of all indications, this person's has got a background or been known for working with the counties and people very well. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea to talk to this person and find out exactly what they think, you know, needs to happen there.
Well, I mean, some of the exploration they have done since she has been there has discovered things that we must take care of.
It doesn't mean we have any less of a problem, but it might indicate what's being mandated versus what we have in our discretion.
Yeah, what she's mandated is a small piece of what needs to happen. And we could have done that independent of that. But if we don't take the initiative that we're proposing to take, it won't be but a short time that we'll be in much, much more difficult situation that she never even imagined that we could be in, the staff, the review people. So we're taking proactive steps here to take care of a problem before it becomes a major problem.
If I may add this, if some of you may remember, this is nothing new. We started on this 2 years ago. We have just laid out, not blueprints yet, but plans of a kitchen to start with. I mean, we were looking at an expansion that was needed down there because we're out of space. I mean, it's there. You know, from even the past administration, so this is not something new, but what is new is the issues that have come up since then.
From prolonging it from different years.
Well, maybe we should say we appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We're asking a lot of questions, but it's not because we're trying to be critical. I think you're doing your job and doing a good job of it by bringing this to our attention. The sheriff gave me a tour of the facility on Tuesday, and I appreciate the time he took to do that. We're just trying to see if there's any other option that might allow us to provide food for prisoners at lower cost. That's why we're asking the questions. But I think you're trying to maintain the jail and bringing these things to our attention, and so for that we should be grateful.
But I personally, not speak for the sheriff, I can assure you the years I've been there, you're not going to get a cheaper meal than we fix when we have that kitchen. We normally feed at 81 cents a meal. You can find somebody feed cheaper than that and deliver it and also serve it to the prisoners, then there you go. 81 cents a meal.
And you're serving 2,000 meals a day plus.
Your diet meals on top of that.
If it went up 50 cents a meal, you'd eat up a lot of money in a hurry.
Gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Do we need further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
No.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Motion carries. Gentlemen, if you'll stay in section 3 in your notebook. We next will have a discussion of E911 award for communication console for the Sheriff's Department and also the related benefit, or excuse me, the related budget amendment. Sheriff, Mayor Burgess, and whoever.
Okay,
Okay.
or Lisa has prepared a, let's see, Lisa, you've got back in front there.
Right, I do. I have you've got 3 pieces of paper. One, if you flip over, is the Rutherford County Emergency Communications District minutes that reflect that they approved the request not to exceed $215,000, and that the district would reimburse Rutherford County upon receipt of invoices documenting payment by the county for the radio console equipment purchased. So we have to pay it before we get reimbursed. So part of this request is to fully fund the cost of the project, and the estimate on top of the equipment is some furniture, so a total project cost of $350,000, with $215,000 coming from E911. So at this point, an estimated drawdown of the development tax is what we're recommending, of $135,000. So the back of the pages just gives you an analysis of the development tax and where we stand with it. But the front page of the amendment is the request of $350,000 from the development tax to the capital projects fund to fund the console dispatch project.
We don't know how much it's gonna cost yet.
Right.
When we made the request to the 911 board, 215,000 was an estimate. We don't know if that's what the bids will come in at or not. But anyway, that is only for the electronic pieces of this. The consoles, et cetera, where this stuff will have to be placed, has to be purchased separately. And the 911 board did not want to participate in the cost of that. And that could cost up to $100,000. I don't know whether we know for sure whether it's going to be a little less than that or not. We hope it is. But this request here gives us a little bit of flexibility in that if this bid comes in more than $215,000 for the electronic cost of all this equipment, which we must, again, I think we've already heard the discussion about how old this equipment is and how difficult it is to get replacement parts. I mean, they're not available except on the used market. And this is critical that we get this replaced as soon as we can. So Lisa's just developed a little structure here where we're going to take bids on this next Tuesday. So we'll know where we are, and but we need to be in a position to move on this so we can get this installed sooner than later.
Did we see this at Public Safety? I don't see it in my notes.
I don't know, it's been
a while back.
It's been so a while
We
back.
notified public safety, I guess.
With this
I
911,
remember
see
we-
this,
yeah, we talked about it.
This goes back into June when they actually, we'd already talked about it several months with them before they actually approved this in June. So I don't remember when we might have discussed it.
I know that during one of our budget meetings, it was mentioned that we were going to get $215,000 from.
Did we
For
think that was gonna
E911.
pay the total bill? Did we, or
No,
have we been?
We knew then that that would only pay for the actual, what would you call this, electronic
The
dispatch?
electronic part of it.
The
And we don't
communication
know.
piece.
It was a grant that I kind of went after
Mhm.
and requested from the 911 board, and the 911 board agreed and gave us a grant up to $215,000. Any more than that, the county will have to fund, but this is a grant that, basically I saw the problem and the need, and I went after it to try to help, because we know it's probably gonna cost more. So, at least at this point, I went after and secured us $215,000, gonna help offset whatever the cost is.
I was just wondering, I don't remember the discussion of hitting $135,000 extra out of development tax. Development tax isn't what it used to be. You know, that's a significant hit, you know. And it's great, we're getting 215 of the 350, but we're still fixing to go on the development tax up to 135,000. We gotta be careful how often we go there, because that well's getting pretty low, you know.
That's the only place you can figure it from.
I stayed away from the fund balance in the general fund because we have hit it so hard.
If we don't do this, we'll lose the 215 and we're back up there doing the whole 350 all on our own.
Well, if we don't do this at all,
We'll be out of business.
We'll be out of business.
3
We'll
weeks.
be operating over the 911.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been.
We'll be doubling up like we are at the kitchen. Yeah.
Because we've lost communication about 3 times in the past, or 2 times in the past 3 weeks, where Jim and I's had to come out in the middle of the night and crank the system back up. It's 28 years old, it had a life expectancy of 10 years. We've almost got 3 times the life out of it than what it was projected to get.
It's probably costing us this a year to get it, keep it going.
And you bring a technician out at midnight, it's not cheap.
No. And we don't have communication with Smyrna or Laverne. Those cards are dead and we can't find them. We can't buy those cards to communicate with those 2 cities.
I make a motion approved.
I'll second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer.
And what the motion is that when the bids are open, Tuesday, for this, that you'll be able to act on it. So I guess we need to make this to approve it up to a certain amount of $350,000.
That's what their motion is.
The motion is
Okay.
I assume. That's what we're looking at.
And I have one question. What happens if it does go higher?
By this motion, just approved for 350.
Well,
That 350 could all be electronics, and we have to figure out where to get the stations and
where we
stuff like
gonna,
that.
yeah. So they're gonna get serious about configuring what it takes to put this stuff in, furniture-wise and equipment, and, you know, maybe there's a little bit of play that we don't know, but the whole piece you've given us here is just this much, and we'll have to come back if, here's the bottom line again, this is even worse than the kitchen. This is more important than the kitchen by far, because we're talking about people's ability to call in for us to dispatch and communicate serious matters, so,
Have we taken into any account about looking at consolidation with this amount of money that we're spending for new consoles?
we have taken, here's what we're doing. We're putting ourselves in a position, if we so choose, that option is now going to be available because we're buying a set of equipment that will give us a lot more flexibility and redundancy and compatibility. So that's a decision that can be made. Right now, they don't have enough space to put enough consoles in their area to allow a consolidation. But if they did, this would put us in a position to move in that direction.
Any further discussion relative to the motion?
Well, I've been naysaying all night, but the communications for our officers to be able to communicate is vital. I mean, you can't be out on the road and not be able to communicate when you need help. And everybody fusses about the police and response time and things like that, but that's something that's vital. I mean, there's nothing like a cop when you need one. When you need a policeman, you need them right now. You don't need them 5 minutes from right now. You need them as quickly as they can get there, and this is the only way we can provide that service for our people. So, as much as I don't like spending the money, I mean, that's still something I'm going to support.
Well, and we also do communication not only for the sheriff's office, but we also do it for the county fire department. So we're doing both of those out of the sheriff's office. So if it does go down, naturally, you can't get a police officer or a firefighter.
And they hand off the calls to the EMS?
Yeah, we take all 911 calls.
They take all those
for the
calls
EMS.
first?
So ambulances can't get dispatched if we can't transfer the calls over to EMS.
So what's the piece of the puzzle in consolidating here as far as what we're doing with this amount of
The
money?
biggest
and
piece of the puzzle, again, is space. They can only accommodate, 7 or 8 dispatch units out there. So if we consolidate what we have at EMS versus them, I think we need 12 or somewhere 12 plus.
Well,
and he couldn't put them in the room
I
physically.
couldn't put them in one room right now.
Can't do it.
But the other thing to just go ahead and consolidate would be just, I think either y'all approving or the mayor just handing us the keys and changing the name on the building over there. That'd be about it, and changing the budget. If you want to hand the keys over and change the name and y'all want us to do it, we'll be glad to take it on. That's all it is about consolidation, changing the name.
Gentlemen, any further discussion relative to this motion?
$350,000.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
One last thing, I do want to say sincere thank you to the board that's approved this $215,000 to us. I'm very grateful.
Absolutely.
And I know the rest of the citizens are too.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff Vaughn, do you have anything else?
That's it. Thank y'all.
Gentlemen, section 6 of your notebooks, please. We have a recommendation from the Health and Education Committee approving Eagleville Phase 2 renovation and expansion. Director Gill, Mr. Sandy. Gentlemen, section 6.
Y'all need a new kitchen?
They got one, or 2 or 3.
Eagle does.
That's phase 1.
That's phase 1.
They're gonna get by with what they have.
Mr. Sandvig or Director Gill?
Yeah, obviously, we're here to ask for, matter of fact, the recommendation will be that you approve the Eagleville High School Phase 2 addition at a total cost of $3,529,360 as presented, and that will be lock and key out the door. I know we like to ask that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Turnkey.
Turnkey.
We'll nip that in the bud now.
Thank you.
But just a quick history, I know you've probably heard this, we discussed many months ago about kind of a commitment for us to spend $50 million on various projects within the district. Our hope was to make sure that Stewart's Creek came in under $50 million, which it did. Have they got the copy of this, Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Stewart's Creek, just information only, came in at $46,344,102 out the door, and that was $39,606,000 was construction. The architect fee was $1,344,352. Fixtures, furniture, and equipment, $4,143,750. Various inspections, $250,000, and utilities, we put $1 million, hopefully come in a little less than that. That left us a little over 3.6 million remaining out of that original budgeted money.
Can I ask you a question right there?
Yes, sir.
That $1 million in utilities, we've already got sewer on that property at Stewart's Creek, so what does that $1 million entail?
Go to the second page.
It's on the next page at the bottom.
Next page.
Okay.
It reflects $113,100 be road impact fees, $328,728 additional sewer fees, fire $166,750 for a total of $608,578.
That's not the list I'm not.
You don't see that?
No, I got Stewart's Creek right here on this. Yeah.
Utilities.
Oh, he's down at the bottom of the page.
Oh, he's at the bottom.
Yeah.
They were right there.
$250,000 is sewer
At the center of the
tax.
page, it reflects Smyrna sewer tap fee, $233, CUD.
I thought now back, a little history, we didn't have a sewer tap fee when we went in and to bring sewer and the land and all that. And then we had a little squabble about the impact fee and
Yeah, there was some discussion with respect to.
we were kind of going to be treating each other like family, you know.
I think we did pay an impact fee versus what we do in Murfreesboro. We
According to
pay,
Mr. Cardy, though, Smyrna did substantial road improvements,
Yes.
which we were gonna have to pay for
They
in
ran that
exchange.
They ran the
They built that
sewer
road and all,
line in there.
so it was more than the wash.
The end result was Smyrna was very generous to us.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
me feel
But
bad.
then we
Yeah.
turned around and sold them some land at a pretty good price, correct?
We did actually, we purchased an extra, the Gurley property we purchased, I think at 12,000 an acre, we purchased up to 100 acres more than we needed, knowing that it would appraise later at a much higher value, which it did. It went from 12,000 to about 28 or 29,000, and you folks chose to sell it to Smyrna for park use and other good use for about 17,000 acre, I recall, which still was a pretty good profit on our original investment.
We don't have any impact fees on this.
No,
Okay,
no.
okay.
And this property we sold for them to put this park on, it will benefit
Everybody.
everybody in that part of this
Absolutely.
county. And they are.
We're looking forward to
They are
it.
making plans, moving slowly toward doing that. It's going to be.
No, in all seriousness, the Smyrna did do a good job here
Yes, they did, yeah.
at the end of this thing. When we finally put it all together, we was back and forth a little bit, but we got it worked out there.
Right.
Yeah. I was just making sure on this new one, we didn't have the impact fee. It wasn't the sewer tap. I really didn't think a sewer tap was supposed to be on there. I really didn't.
If you
So.
compare them to what Murfreesboro does, they're very comparable. So I think we're getting about what we'd get if we were building in Murfreesboro.
Okay.
And flipping back to page 1, as I said, the total cost for the high school was $46,344,102. That left us a little over $3.6 million. Well, phase 2, there were 2 phases to Eagleville. Phase 2 was the cheaper phase to get done, and the bid on it came in at $3,529,360. And the construction cost was $2,976,141,000 architect fee, $262,000 furniture, fixture, equipment, inspection $100,000, and utilities $50,000, which got us down to a balance a little over $100,000. But when you factor in the design fee for the other phase, which we had to pay, we fell short by $72,000, which we have a funding source that we'll be bringing to you at some point to do that. Now, I would say if you look at the bottom, phase 2 reflects specifically what they'll be getting, which is 8 classrooms, 1 science classroom, 1 teacher workroom, boys and girls, restrooms, teacher work area, elevator access, hallway lockers, and teacher restrooms. And that's the second floor. First floor, there's an unfinished space for boys and girls restrooms that I presume that they're going to finish. Who's that other sheet, Jeff? Phase 2, just as an FYI. Yeah, phase 1, pardon me, which is the phase that we're not doing. It came in at $4,447,465. And again, exceeds the $50 million that it was kind of understood that you were willing to fund. And had we in with phase one, that would have been 9 classrooms, 2 science classrooms, a new auditorium, which I think we all agreed through various discussions over the last 2 years, they do need a band rehearsal room, a choral rehearsal room, 4 practice music rooms, expansion of the cafeteria by removing old stage, removal and replacement of tile in the hallway, sound booth in the auditorium, dressing room, makeup room, and a bookstore. And there are 14 portables in place out there. Phase 2 will help. I mean, it won't completely eliminate portables, and I think it will continue to be a priority of the school board to finish phase 1 of Eagleville's addition, and I think you guys recognize the need for it too. And I'm sure we'll be back at some point when better times are here to ask that you fund that as well.
So the design on phase 1 has already been lumped in here with phase 2?
Yes,
You
sir. Yeah.
So that won't be a cost later on?
No.
So it'll be a straight out?
Right.
What was that cost on to finish phase 1?
A little over 4.4, almost $4.5 million for phase 1.
Phase 1 by itself?
Yes.
Okay.
That's with today's market prices too, so who knows what it'll be in 2 years.
And the school board has decided, this is a recommendation from the school board, to do phase 2 at this point in time.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve construction of phase 2 of the.
Second motion.
That's 9 classrooms, just so everybody hears that.
Yes, sir.
And what's the total square footage on that?
13,600.
No, that's unfinished.
Yeah, but that's what the upper story is
I
too.
believe Mr. Carty said that 13,000 feet would more than likely be built up by booster clubs and things like that, so that's more facilities for the students to get to use. in the
You know the
community.
footage?
I don't know.
I don't.
Like 27.4 just off the top of your head? I mean, because it,
I don't know. I guess I need to misspeak.
Is it 2-story box? Is that what it is?
Actually, the lay of the land.
Yeah. No, it's not quite. Okay.
Supports like a room under it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk for just a second about sort of tax projections, Ms. Nolan. You've included a chart. It looks like it's in section 9. This is all within the 50,000 bond issuance, so I know it, 50 million bond issuance, so I know it doesn't really change these projections. But I just bring it up for you to confirm for us that for the next 2 years.
Go to section, if you would go to section 8. And hopefully I put this in the right spot, that you should have and hit fall 2011 capital, a projected capital project. This, the $46,344,000 for Stewart's Creek. The next section has to do with Eagleville with the $3.5 million. I'm under that total column. I'm going to get to your question, but I knew that this was coming to is where we're going to pay for it, how we're going to fund it. There's money left from Browns Chapel Elementary and Campus School of almost $1.2 million that could be applied to the Eagleville project. In May 2011, the commission authorized $350,000 that was left over from the Oakland Middle and Buchanan Middle to be transferred to the Eagleville project to pay for the design. Today there is another almost $306,000 left in the Oakland and Middle. Those two projects could also be, those funds could be transferred toward this project.
Is that including that other 40,000 we talked about earlier in the meeting?
No, that's what I'm saying. I was bringing
It's a little
40. That needs to be. I didn't have that at the time, but now that it's 40,000 running around there.
So it's 345,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, and so just know that that's back there. With this, and we've told you before, that Jeff and I are very conscientious about keeping the money separate, what's elementary money, what's middle money, and what's high school money. So we get down and we have $584,000 for the elementary portion that we need toward Eagleville. That's going to result, we'll need another almost $106,000 for the share with the city of Murfreesboro. So then what's left? We're coming back to the 50 million, because that's what we were trying to project, if we were to borrow 50 million. The difference is the next thing is potential road and sheriffs that we've got in there, $1.9 million. That could go for road. We still have Joby Jackson, and that estimate is $4 million, so this would only fund part of it. The other road issues that we have outstanding on Halls Hill Pike, there still are some properties that, through the condemnation process, is still not settled, so there won't be additional needs for some money for Halls Hill Pike yet. With the estimated underwriters discount of 505, that's where I get to the $50,725,000. That goes with our initial resolution that we'll be talking about. So flipping over to the next page is what Commissioner Bond.
I say, and you slid that in there real quick, and I wasn't sure that I heard it right. You did say part of this $50,725,000 was for the sheriff's renovation of
No,
the.
the resolution was written, the initial resolution that gave you some authority on how to spend. I put in there potential road share because that's what's left over.
Okay, that's where I picked up on
That's
here.
what's left over from after the amount of the initial resolution that we put out to the public, and you take away the high school and the net of what we'll need for Eagleville, that's how much is left. So it could go, and we've written the resolution to give you flexibility. But knowing that you've got a $4 million road project, this is not even half of that, but that's going to be coming later.
But we'll have time to address that. We don't need the whole $4 million up front.
Right.
Hopefully, we don't even need the $1.9 million in the next fiscal year, but we'll need some part of that.
Well, that project's moving along pretty quickly from what I hear, so.
They're gonna take the bids on it soon, I believe.
Yeah, but the city, I talked to them the other day, it ain't gonna be too long before they take the bid.
So-
They done started moving water lines and all that.
That's just some flexible money that she said could go for roads and/or sheriff, whatever the commission chooses to use it for.
Okay.
That section needed done bad too.
So, okay, so flipping over, what is this going to look like? And it's done a kind of a projection. With our debt service and the revenue that we have projected, and we've pulled it down, is that we would be okay using, we're projecting using 2.6 million fund balance to fund this year, but we're still within our requirement of 4.3 million. And with this projection is another draw of 3 million in the following year, but yet we'd still meet our projection. The problem would come in year 13, 14, potentially. And I'm looking at that last column. The over-under requirement.
I guess my interpretation of this is we're pretty much at the point where it looks like, if not, I mean, not this year, but a couple of years down the road, we may very well likely need a tax increase. These capital projects, I guess unfortunately, seem to come to us one by one, sequentially. We don't get to look at all of them and pick out the one or two that are our top priorities and fund them and then draw a line and say no more because we don't want to raise taxes. They come to us one by one. So we look at the sheriff's kitchen and we talk about that first and we approve it because it sounds good. And then we talk about Eagleville and it comes next. And Eagleville can be covered with the $50 million bond issuance. And maybe the litigation tax can cover the sheriff's kitchen. But what if next month we need several more million for a new dispatch center? At that time, we might say, well, gosh, that's really our top priority. That's absolutely vital. But we've already approved 2 capital projects in front of that one, and by the time you get to the third one, the litigation tax fund is gone, the 50 million in bonds have been issued, and you can look at these projections and see you won't be raising taxes in 3 years, you'll be raising them this year. The capital project decisions we make today affect the tax rate we set in May. They're not really independent. If they were all together on the same night, it would be a lot easier to say, we're going to do a new dispatch center and we're going to do Eagleville and we're going to stop right there and not raise taxes. I just bring that up because when it comes sequentially like this, it's real easy to say, let's build a new kitchen. Let's build the expansion to Eagleville. But this has implications, and based on your projections, we're sort of at our maximum. And our maximum involves a tax increase, just not this year.
Right.
It's got to finally hurt enough where you're willing to raise taxes. That's the reason why the judicial center and the parking garage and several other things have been batted around for years haven't been done, and may not be done for some extended period of time. But when it comes to a school, you've got to have classroom space, and you've got to be able to feed your prisoners. Some of the things are just needs and not wants. I think we've got a pretty good record of not necessarily but doing the wants and just sticking with the needs, especially in the current economy.
Yeah, actually, to piggyback what Mr. Jordan said, we tried to do a 5-year plan, but it's really more accurate for 2 years because there's been a lot of volatility with respect to the number of students that have moved in. One year you get 1,900, next year you get 16, now step back down to 700 or 800, which is more manageable. But we've always looked first at adding classrooms because it's less expensive than building buildings, but we're to the point now where we can't really, I don't know that we got anywhere we can add classrooms.
And we've done that. We've
We've done that
added
all along.
classrooms, yeah.
But you're right, I mean, it's almost like, I would be the first to concur, there's almost like two separate agencies there. There's Board of Education, and then there's all the other various projects. And I think my takeaway has always been everything that's ever been asked by almost everybody's been needed, but it's not always affordable either.
And to, what are you saying on the 5-year capital plan? I mean, we've had our plan on the general side too. It just keeps being pushed.
We don't do any of those projects.
Well, you got a county that one of the fastest growing counties it is in anywhere.
But
And you're going, as long as you keep growing like this, you're gonna have problems you gotta address.
I don't know, Lisa, you've used, for the 50 million, what rate have you used on that? 4.5, is that?
No, the 4.5 goes to
4.5 is
these two.
Okay.
I think it's 3.5. I think that was 3.5.
3.5.
The last one that seemed different.
Between now and the end of this fiscal year, I know we don't know for sure, but if you had to guess, what would you guess the other capital projects are to come down the pike? I mean, the ones that are gonna cost $1 million or more.
Nothing except that Joe B. Jackson,
the road.
That's the biggie. And hopefully we won't use any borrowed money to do this sheriff's business. I mean, there's a potential there, so we haven't planned on using any of this, but she does have enough flexibility in that language to allow it if you choose to do that.
The only problem is utilities, roofs, those type things that could hit us, which has hit us before in the past.
Natural disaster where we're self-insured, a tornado or
We do have a
something.
capital projects fund.
Yeah, they've got that almost 5
Which is
cents.
5 cents on tax
Not
rate.
quite 5,
How
I
much
think
that
it's
is?
down a little
It's
bit.
equivalent.
About 5
Well,
cents. on
we
the
just
road.
finished campus school out of that capital project fund, which is a pretty good lick. But all that's taken care of.
As long as we don't have a natural disaster that we're, hit us where we're self-insured on.
Right.
And when I talk about a forecast of future capital projects, not just education, I mean sheriffs. You
That's
know,
right.
so we get
I mean, we've
dispatch
had
equipment.
$10 million in that sheriff's, in the capital plan for many years.
Yeah, we got pretty far along, with the $8 to $10 million we thought that was gonna cost. We just sort of pulled all that back. Because we can't fund it along with the other things here that we're doing here, proposing right now.
But he's right, I mean, it's a priority thing, and that's what's going on with me in the kitchen there. I'm more on education than, I'd rather sublet this or at least look and see better numbers out there, so, we've all got our priorities, it's our decision to make, part of the decisions here we make, so. If you look back last year, what was it, we went into undesignated fund balance, and we said we wouldn't this year. Well, here's the kitchen already came up. There's the communication centers already came up. There's always gonna be something come up that we're in dire needs of.
Well, Of course, that development tax fund, I mean, that's not general fund, I mean, that's.
Right.
And that money's there, that has been the money that typically has been used over many years for capital expenditures, like, whether it's OIT or whether it's, needs there that we couldn't fund out of county general. And that's where that money is, $2 million is still there.
Gentlemen, we do have a motion to approve the Eagleville High School Phase 2. Do we need any further discussion before we vote? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Pease?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Before we go to the next part, can I ask him a couple of questions? Just two things on this sheet right here that y'all gave us. Oakland Middle School. I thought when the bid came in on it for just the building, that it came out right in line with Buchanan Middle School. And what happened?
Just for the site issues it did. That was a much more expensive site to build on.
Then let's go back up to Stewart's Creek High School. I thought we got some site work done there when we did the other two, and it's still gonna be 5.6 million
Yeah,
more?
Yeah, we had just some preliminary site work, nothing substantial. Another thing that drove the cost up there, CTE. Courses are a little more complex. You have to do things that you didn't have to do years ago. That's driven the cost up some, but, yeah, the site work is still pretty significant.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Pease?
Just a question, of course, Board of Education has met. I just wanted to update on Commissioner Jordan, Chairman of Health and Ed. What's going on there? Do anybody have an update there?
I talked with him today, in fact. He said he thinks he is progressing at the level that he should, but it's a slow process. But he seemed in good spirits. He said he is doing his walking and has gotten to the maximum of where he should be at this point. He has a good appetite. He is sleeping relatively well, he said. So he sounded good, and he's anxious to get back, but he said, we'll look at that in November.
Well, if he needs some health aids, he can come out and pick up rocks on the farm there. I mean, we can help him out.
But I was surprised when I called today, he actually answered the phone.
Well, good.
And had just a short conversation with
Well,
him.
these guys here, I thought somebody would know between us, so thank you.
Anything else?
No, just one parting shot. It is exciting to see Stewart's Creek coming together. I go out there almost pretty much every day, and there's like so much heavy
They're going at
out
it.
there.
They're going at it.
Oh yeah, they're really getting after it out there. So in the next week or two, you get a chance to get out there if you're in that area. It's really exciting to see it.
One other thing about Stewart's Creek, Mark O'Neill, town manager of Smyrna, he's started a journey, and I'm helping him. We're all trying to find a way to get a signal light put up there at Morton Road before we get this school open. So we're going to have to work on that pretty hard. We think it's very much needed. He does.
Yes, it is.
Talking about on Allenville Road.
Yes, sir.
You have to be going through state to get it.
Yeah. So I say we're starting the journey.
They don't put them on the main road.
It's needed, for sure. Take one there to school every morning.
Foxland Drive up too?
I don't know about that. He said he thinks Morton is the only way practically to go in there.
Yeah.
But it's putting a lot more stress on when those high school students get there. It's just, we just hadn't seen anything yet.
Oh, yeah.
Director Gill, Mr. Sandvik, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, section 8 in your notebooks, please. Gentlemen, section 8, final resolution authorizing the issuance of our general obligation bonds.
Now the final resolution.
Comes the tough part.
Well, all this, second paragraph is the same as the initial. The rest of it is a little legal parts to itself.
Okay, gentlemen?
We heard the excitement down at that end of the table, so.
Who wants to make the motion to borrow $50 million?
Well, since the school out in my district is most of it, I'll make the motion to approve $50,725,000 in a bond. I'll say bond.
And seconded by Commissioner Baum. Of course, we've already had
All the other
discussion.
discussion.
Do we need any more explanation or discussion from our finance director?
By Rutherford County.
By Rutherford County, that's,
Shop
roll,
Rutherford
please.
County.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Live in Rutherford.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner T,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Gentlemen, staying in section 8, we have now, or will be required to have a debt management policy. And you have a resolution here and also the document, which is the policy. And it's my understanding that we will not take any action on this
No,
tonight.
I wanted to give it to you so you could read it.
Oh, reading
And,
trouble tonight.
The comptroller's office
Is there gonna be a
required
test?
all the local governments to adopt a debt management policy. This policy is adopted from the state funding board's policy. And give credit where credit is due, relied heavily on Bassberry and Sims and Stevens Inc. in preparing the document. It pretty much brings back, just distills into writing what we do anyway. But
It's not gonna change anything.
Can I make a motion to designate Mr. Baum as
To-
to look this over and make a formal presentation to the committee next month?
well, I mean,
See, is proficient in this type of thing?
well, pretty much it's what we do anyway, and it's what is in state law anyway for us. There are things in there that, for example, just a couple points, is that TCA allows you to structure your debt over 30 years. Well, typically, we only do 20. The policy is set for 30 because that mirrors what state statutes do, okay? The county has not entered into the variable rate market. We've talked about it, but we've never done it.
I thought we did about 15 million.
No, we borrowed a short term.
Short term, yeah.
No, with the intention at some point maybe thinking about stepping into the variable market, but we haven't done it. The policy will be sent to the comptroller's office. Any kind of debt we do, they will check against our policy to make sure that we're following our policy. I say that to say, if we didn't put anything in here allowing us to do variable rate debt, and we at a later time chose to, they wouldn't allow it if we didn't have it in our policy. So there is language in there, again, that gives us flexibility to do really what state law allows us to do.
But you're saying basically, even if we adopt what the state's got out there, it's not gonna really change anything, policies that we've got in place. For
Right.
instance, the set amount of different funds that we keep at a certain percentage.
Yeah, that's a fund balance policy. This is just how we manage debt. And as you go through it, you'll recognize it as what we do anyway. And there's some statements in here that you know that we don't borrow money to operate. We borrow for capital, but yet there is some flexibility that if you need operating money for tax anticipation notes, that's in state statute, so that authority's in here. But we don't bond money, borrow bonded debt to pay operating. We don't do it. We say in here, we don't do it. So.
Does every county and incorporated municipality have to have a written policy?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just us, it extends to IDB boards, any public person that issues debt.
So this county's in good shape. And what little bit I'm out and talk to commissioners and people in other counties, smaller counties, more rural counties, some of those counties have got problems, you know, and we have always, to pat ourselves on the back or pat you on the back or the mayor on the back, always had good, sound financial policy in place, and we're not living on borrowed money, and we're not, you know, squeezing by and stuff, and we've got a financial part to be proud of with all the awards you've been getting for all these many years in a row.
Well, we had I think the last couple of times that we had our rating review, there was always one line that says that we don't have a debt management policy.
You're gonna knock that out right now.
How we
They'll find something else.
Policy adopted before the rating agencies review us
I
again?
talked to Sam, they said, it really is not gonna matter. I mean, it's in process. I've given it to
Okay.
you, you know, we'll be doing it in November.
So next month, Charlie will make the report back to the committee and we'll vote on it.
But if you have any questions about any part of it, you know, feel free to call me.
Well, a quick question. If we run into a cash shortage, a cash flow problem like the city in this county did, because we can't, they borrowed money. Can we say
You
we?
still can, and we still can. It's, well, I guess I want to make a separation between a note and a bond. We're not going to go
Go
to
bond, we're
the
gonna
issue
get a
bonds
tax
to operate.
anticipation note, okay.
But we can do tax anticipation notes, which is very short. Okay, gentlemen, turn to section 9. We do have one more item of business to take care of, and this is a recommendation from the steering committee authorizing increasing the litigation tax for general session judges. The current rate is $9.35. That was adopted by the commission. Statutes provide for $6, but if you can show that your costs are higher, you can adopt a higher rate. In 2010, our rate was $10.53. In 2011, it's $10.19. With the increase that the judges received, and using the same amount of costs, as an estimate, it could be $10.43, but because I'm not working with exact numbers, I'm recommending $10, go up $1 to $10.35.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Sanders, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Discussion.
It should go in effect November 1st, 2011, correct?
Yes. And I've already spoken to Circuit Court Clerk.
We approved it through steering, and matter of fact, I made a motion to approve for more than that. I saw our paper and I was like, hey, let's do that. But that's all we can do, 1035, so.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaver.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Is there any other business that needs to come before our committee? Gentlemen, thank you. We are adjourned.